Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast.
Hi, this is Tracy Hales with Right On Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico. Today I have the pleasure of talking again with Chuck Greaves about his new book, The Chimera Club, a Jack MacTaggart mystery. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning, Tracy. Great to be with you.
And it's great to talk to you, and I really enjoyed the Chimera Club. Jack MacTaggart is back.
Jack is back.
Yes. A lot of surprises and twists and turns, but spellbinding, good old police procedure, detective work going on here, and the mystery to solve. Several, actually.
Yeah, it's basically a whodunit. You know,
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of the whodunit, where the reader gets to follow along and tries to solve the crime along with the protagonist. So that's
Right.
what this is.
Before we go further, why don't you tell our audience a little synopsis of the book?
Sure. The book is called The Chimera Club. It's set in Los Angeles, and mostly set in Los Angeles' Chinatown area, in the old downtown part of L.A. And the basic story is that a film producer, sort of a Harvey Weinstein-type character named Ari Goldstone, is found murdered in his hotel suite in Los Angeles, tied to the bedposts and naked, stabbed to death. The police recovered DNA from the scene that points to only one possible suspect in the murder, and that is a man named Jimmy Kwan. And Jimmy Kwan happens to be the father of a woman who is among several women who are suing Ari Goldstone for sexual misconduct. And so the police think they have a slam-dunk case. The problem is that at the time of the murder, Jimmy Kwan is 7,000 miles away in Hong Kong and has an ironclad alibi. So when Kwan's daughter, May Kwan, who's a former fashion model turned nightclub owner in Los Angeles, hires attorney Jack MacTaggart to defend her father, Jack has to solve the mystery of how the only possible suspect in the murder can't possibly have committed the murder. And then he has to stay alive long enough to bring the real killer to justice. And that's a fair synopsis of the book.
It is, and he does have to work at staying alive. A lot of action in here. So one thing I noticed about this book that I could not let go of is so much of it, as is so true in L.A., is on the roads of L.A.
Yeah, somebody commented to me how many car descriptions there are. But of course, LA has a car culture and a freeway culture.
Right.
And there's a lot of movement traversing back and forth across LA from downtown, where most of the action happens, out to Malibu, out to Venice, out to Bel Air, where the murder happens, up to the Pasadena area where Jack has his office. So yes, Century City. There's a lot of movement back and forth across Los Angeles. So if you have any familiarity with LA, you'll find it very interesting in that respect.
So did you have to go back to LA and drive these before you wrote this?
The answer is no, because I lived in LA for 30 years, so it was all second nature to me. But I did go back to LA while researching this book for one purpose. There are two major scenes toward the end of the book that take place in Union Station, which is the train and bus depot, the old, beautiful, ornate train and bus depot in downtown Los Angeles. And I knew I wanted to have one of the climactic scenes take place there in Union Station. And so I actually took a trip to L.A. just to go to Union Station and walk around, and I spent most of the day sort of just casing the joint, trying to figure out, exactly how that scene would play out.
Right. Well, that's interesting. I wondered if you had to revisit some of those old haunts.
I did. Yeah, in that respect, I did.
Yeah.
Because I haven't spent a lot of time, other than going to the courthouse, I haven't spent a lot of time in downtown L.A. because I lived in the San Gabriel Valley, up around the Pasadena area, where Jack's office is in the books, and where he lives in the books in a town called San Marino. Yeah, refamiliarizing myself with downtown L.A. Was part of the research that I did.
Well, we don't want to give anything away. You went back to Jack MacTaggart after writing Church of the Graveyard Saints. Was a completely different book.
Yes. So the Chimera Club for me represents a return to my roots as a writer, because when I first began writing fiction, and again, by way of background, I was a lawyer for 25 years in L.A., and in 2006, I left the practice to focus on my writing. And the first book that I wrote was a legal mystery called Hush Money, and the book that introduced Jack MacTaggart to the world. And I wrote 3 MacTaggart books in a row. I wrote Hush Money, which was published in 2012, then a book called Green-Eyed Lady, which was published in 2013, and then a book called The Last Heir, which was published in 2014. And then I sort of changed gears, and writing as C. Joseph Greaves rather than Chuck Greaves, I wrote 3 non-mystery books. I wrote a historical book called Hard Twisted, a second historical book called Tom and Lucky, set in New York. That book was a Wall Street Journal Best Book of the Year selection. And then I wrote Church of the Graveyard Saints, which is set here in southwestern Colorado, where I currently live. All 3 of those were more literary, more general fiction. So this book, which is the 4th Jack MacTaggart book, comes after an 8-year hiatus from writing the mystery novels. So for me, like I said, it's a return to my roots as a mystery writer.
You said that you returned to your roots as a mystery writer, so you feel really comfortable with Jack MacTaggart, you're saying.
I absolutely do. The first time you sit down to write a book, you write what you know generally, which I did. Jack is sort of my alter ego as a lawyer in Southern California.
Right.
He's a smarter, funnier, better-looking alter ego, but nonetheless, there's some of me in there.
Yeah.
Writing a mystery novel is my first love in terms of being a reader, and writing in the first person, the way the MacTaggart books are written, comes natural to me, whereas the other 3 books that I described, the more literary books, were all written in the third person, which is a different thing for me. So I find it very easy and very natural to write the MacTaggart books, because I know the character, and the writing flows naturally. It's what I call my natural writing style. In contrast to writing, more literary fiction in the third person, which requires some effort, for anybody. And for me, at least, it just doesn't come as naturally.
So why did you go that way for a while?
Well, I guess it's aspirational. I had a lot of success as a mystery writer early on. The first book was a finalist for a lot of big awards. It was one of 5 finalists, for example, for the Audio Award, which is for the best mystery audio book of the year, when I was up against people like Laura Littman and Louise Penny. So that was a great honor for me as a first-time novelist. And after 3 of those novels, I thought I wanted to do something more aspirational, challenge myself a little bit. I love reading more literary fiction, and I thought, and I had this great idea for the next book, which is this book called Hard Twisted, based on a true crime that happened back in the 1930s. And I had done a lot of research on that story anyway, so I thought I'd take it on and write it as a literary novel. So I wanted to challenge myself. That's the answer.
Well, that's great, and that worked. And I think that there's a little bit of mystery in Hard Twisted, Church of the Graveyard Saints, and the other one, don't you?
Yeah, well, certainly Hard Twisted and Tom and Lucky. You can still call them crime novels,
right?
Because they're based on true crimes. Church of the Graveyard Saints was really a departure because it's really not a crime novel, although the crime writer in me couldn't resist a bit of a twist ending.
Right.
But it's not a crime novel.
Yeah. Yep, I could see the influence of mystery in those when I read them. Oh, good.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but
well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, Jack, this Chimera Club it has a lot of stuff going on, a lot of different stories, a lot of red herrings that are pretty complex. Was it difficult to keep track of all that?
That's an interesting question, and that's a question that goes to process. For me, I'm not an outliner, okay? I don't outline my books at all. I just sit down and start writing, and I don't, make any charts or put up Post-it notes or any of that sort of thing. So I keep it all in my head.
Wow.
So it's not difficult. Like I say, I don't have difficulty plotting like that. I have the benefit, of course, of just putting down a first draft and then going back and working with it, and massaging it, and adding an element here and subtracting an element there, and whipping it into shape in that way. So basically, my first draft is my outline.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
A lot of writers are outliners. Some are very assiduous outliners who make very complex outlines. I've never been comfortable doing that. Once I have an idea, I want to just take the bit in my mouth and go. And
you, without giving anything away again, you saw the ending before you actually finished the book.
Yes, I knew what the ending was going to be because I had what I thought was a wonderful idea for a surprise ending. And I wrote the whole book working toward that ending. That's correct.
Was it hard to build that, or did the characters just come unbidden as you wrote?
Well, a lot of the series characters were already there, of course, Jack and his partner, Marta Suarez, and some of the other ancillary characters. They had all appeared in previous books, and I had the ending. Of course, there's a bunch of new characters in this book. There's a love interest for Jack, and there's his client, and those sorts of things. But no, it flowed pretty naturally. The idea of having a Harvey Weinstein-type character,
right,
and the whole Me Too movement type theme that occurs in the book, that was ripped from the headlines.
Yes.
But by and large, it all flowed together seamlessly. I have no difficulty with it at all.
Why Chinatown?
That's a good question. I don't know why Chinatown. I just thought it would be an interesting place to set a book.
And the Chimera himself has a dragonish Asian-type look to it.
It does. For those listeners who aren't familiar with what a chimera is a creature from Greek mythology that has the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a serpent. And a chimera also means something that's unobtainable or illusory, or a will-o'-the-wisp sort of thing. And so both of those meanings, there's a double entendre there. When you read the book, you'll see that they both have resonance in the book once it's finally revealed to you.
It's very true. And our female protagonist is luxuriously beautiful, long-legged, and exotic.
Yes, she's a former fashion model, former Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover model, actually. But when we meet her, she's been out of the modeling business for a decade, and she owns the hottest nightclub in L.A., in Chinatown. She's Eurasian. Her father's Chinese, and her mother was Irish, basically. And she's exotically beautiful, and that adds another element to the book.
It does. She must have been fun to write.
She was. She's sort of a classic femme fatale.
She is, with those long legs and the stiletto heels. And
yes.
Her exotic clothing. I really enjoyed her. I enjoyed her very much.
I'm glad. And hopefully she's not one-dimensional. I think she's a fully developed person as well.
I think so, too. I feel like I really got to know her and could sympathize with her.
Good. Yeah.
So will we see more of Jack MacTaggart?
Well, I hope so.
Good.
Like I say, I enjoy writing Jack. We'll see how this book does, and if there's a public interest in Jack, I hope there is, because like I say, he's my first love, and if I'm gonna start with him, it'd be nice to end with him. So we'll see.
Would you like to read something from the Chimera Club for us?
I'd be happy to. I think listeners don't really like to hear authors read that much, so I'm going to keep it really short.
Okay.
But since you were talking about May and May Kwan, our femme fatale,
Yes.
let me find the scene where we first introduce May to our readers.
Okay.
And I'll just read a very short segment of that. How about that?
That'd be great.
Jimmy Kwan's daughter was younger than I'd expected, maybe late 20s at most. Tall and willowy, she strode the carpeted distance from the doorway to my desk with the ramrod posture and swinging hips of the runway model she'd been. Her raven hair was long and sleek and parted on the side, leaving but one Eurasian eye with which to navigate. My first impression was that of a woman used to being stared at, and that this morning would be no exception. Mr. MacTaggart, thank you for seeing me without an appointment. Jack, please, and the pleasure's mine. I nodded to Mayday as I stood, my partner, Marta Suarez. She shook our hands in turn and took the chair Mayday had vacated, plunking a pricey-looking handbag in her lap. She tossed her hair and crossed her exquisite legs. She wore no jewelry that I could see, and her navy skirt and starched linen blouse were stylish yet conservative, the overall effect being that of long-stemmed roses wrapped in newsprint. Or maybe it was nuclear fission encased in lead for public safety.
Yes. And there
you have our introduction to May Kwan.
That's right. Which really impresses Jack.
Yeah, it does. Well, of course, Jack is easily distracted.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's a great character. I mean, he's rough riding and a little bit of a womanizer, right?
Yeah, my idea for Jack in all the books is that he's this kind of blue-collar guy, a lunch bucket sort of guy who didn't go to the best law school, but is street smart. And he winds up in the first novel, he winds up at this very hoity-toity white shoe law firm in Pasadena, where he's just a fish out of water. And I played that theme in all of the books, where Jack is just a fish out of water in an upscale setting. So in Hush Money, it involves equestrian show jumping and that whole horsey set. And in the second book, Green-Eyed Lady, it involves the art world and politics. He's defending a U.S. senator, a candidate for U.S. Senate, who's accused of a crime. And in the third novel, it's set in the Napa Valley wine country, so there's a whole wine snobbery thing going on. And again, Jack is a fish out of water in that setting. And so that idea of him being a part of the action, but also apart from it, and sort of viewing it with a jaundiced eye, is definitely a theme that runs throughout the series.
Yes, I like him. He always manages to have a beer or a scotch in his hand, or vodka, or whatever happens to be around.
Yeah.
And I like his dog, Sam.
Sam, the dog, is back.
Yes, he's a good character, too. I can tell you have dogs.
I've always had dogs, yes.
Yeah.
I'm surprised she hasn't barked yet, but yeah.
It happens. Believe me, it happens.
I'm sure.
So, how do you write? I know you said that you sit down and write it and it comes out and then you go back and revise it and etc. So how long from inception to sending it off to the publisher?
The MacTaggart books generally take me about 2 years to write. Well, I shouldn't say that. The first book took me 2 years to write. The second book, because I was under contract and had to get it to the publisher within a year, took me a year to write. So I had to really jam on that one. I had more time on the third one, so I'd say it probably took me 2 years. And this book took me 2 years. I'll tell a funny story. When I first started writing, I went to a writers' conference, as people do, and I went to the Tony Hillerman Writers' Conference, which at that time was down in Albuquerque. They since moved it up to Santa Fe. But at the Hillerman Conference, one of the first speakers was Craig Johnson, who writes the Walt Longmire mysteries.
Right.
And Craig talked about the writing process. And he told the audience, he said, when you're going to sit down to write a book, a mystery book especially, you have to outline. He said, if you write a book without outlining, it's like getting in your car in Los Angeles and driving to New York without a map. You'll probably get there, but it'll take way longer than it should have, and you'll have many wrong turns along the way. So be sure to have a good map when you sit down to actually write your manuscript. Okay.
Okay.
Next speaker was Michael McGarity. McGarity said, never outline. He said, it takes all the spontaneity out of the process, and your characters, if you don't outline, your characters will talk to you, and they'll tell you exactly where they want to go, and just follow them, and you'll be fine.
Right.
So there you have it.
Right.
I think most writers fall on the spectrum, somewhere between
too.
Yeah, between being, careful outliners or being just seat-of-the-pants writers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the spectrum, but I'm very much closer to the total seat-of-the-pants.
It's interesting. I do ask my authors what they are, a plotter or a pantser. And you're right, it's on the spectrum. And I know that some, and I happen to think that when Craig Johnson talks about outlining, he's actually letting the characters evolve as he outlines. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, my line is, as I said earlier, my first draft is my outline.
Right.
I just don't have the patience to outline.
Right.
And I think if I ever did outline, I'd abandon the outline by chapter 3 anyway, so why bother?
Right.
Just go with the flow.
This is not going to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or this idea comes up that's, shinier than what you had in mind earlier, so you follow that, lead, and it leads to the next one and to the next one.
It does, especially when you have real characters. They tell you what to do.
Yeah, and the other thing is you have to have a framework in mind. I mean,
right.
As you know, as a genre writer, you write in what's called 3-act structure. So you have an opening act where you introduce the problem, and you have a middle act where you basically solve the problem, and then you have a final act where you take the character out of the story. So I always have 3-act structure in mind when I write. That comes naturally to me, or it's been ingrained enough that it comes naturally now. So if I know where the book's going to end, and I have a good beginning, and I have 2 plot points in mind to divide my 3 acts, that's all I need.
And that's basically what reading and writing and conferencing, etc., does. It gives you basics that you do rely on, whether outwardly or not.
Especially reading. I think if you read in the genre in which you write, you sort of absorb by osmosis what the rules are.
And do you do that?
Yeah, I'm a big reader. I love to read, and I cut my teeth as a mystery reader. When I was a kid, the first books I remember reading were my sister had the whole set of Nancy Drew books, and I read them all. That's probably my first introduction to reading. That taught me to love reading and taught me to love mysteries. And then the book that probably had the single biggest influence on me as a reader and later as a writer was The Complete Sherlock Holmes. I just love Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, all of his stories.
Right.
And, I was also a huge fan of Rex Stout's Nero Wolfe mysteries. I read all those books. So, yeah, my DNA is definitely in the mystery genre.
That's fascinating. I read mysteries, too, and therefore write them. Just seems natural. And you absorb that. You absorb that pattern, I think, on some level. And go,
absolutely.
Somebody else has to die or whatever.
Yeah. So when I sat down to write Hush Money, which was my debut novel, I hadn't taken any writing class. I mean, I just knew from repetition and experience what a mystery novel should look like. I've been very fortunate in that I've finished every novel I've ever started writing, and I've sold every novel I've ever finished. So I've been very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, well, they're really good, and you work on them till they're done.
Yeah, I'm one of those writers who I make the analogy to a painter who after he sold the painting will try to sneak into the museum or the library and just add a few more dabs of paint right there at the end. But
So true.
I'm always the hard part of writing is to know when to stop writing.
It's really true.
Know when to stop revising.
Yes.
To say, okay, this is good enough. I got to let this go.
It's really true. I'll read something that was published some time ago and go, oh, I should have said it this way.
Of course.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I tell you, there's something to be said for writing a draft and then putting it aside and doing something else and then coming back to it, sometime later and looking at it with really fresh eyes.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to do that with the Chimera Club. I wrote it, had it in pretty good shape, put it aside, worked on other things. I don't know if you knew about this, but I wrote a screenplay for a pilot that got filmed, for a TV pilot.
Oh.
So that occupied me for a good 6 months of my life, and then I came back to the Chimera Club and got to look at it with fresh eyes.
Well, that's interesting. And what was the script?
Yeah, there's a whole story behind this, but the show was called Bad Water. It's a TV show that I conceived with a director named Felix Alcala. Felix is a veteran TV director. He's done all sorts of shows that like ER and Breaking Bad, and directed all sorts of episodes of episodic television. And he and I were introduced by a mutual friend in late 2019. We had dinner together. We decided we were going to try to do something together. And I went home and I wrote the treatise, or the what they call the series Bible, for a TV series that would be set here in southwestern Colorado.
Wow.
In Mancos and Cortez area. And it would involve, the central story had to do with missing and murdered indigenous women, and it involved the tense relations between a border town and a neighboring reservation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a drama, gritty drama. The show was called Bad Water. I then wrote the pilot script, and Felix and I raised $700,000 in investor capital, and we shot the pilot. We shot it here in 2020 with mostly professional actors, but we used some locals in smaller parts and as background actors. And it was a fabulous experience. It was my first experience screenwriting, and I got to wear both hats, both my screenwriter hat and my co-producer hat, and watch the whole process evolve from concept all the way to completed pilot.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it was great. It really was. Now, the unfortunate ending to that story is we didn't sell the pilot, but most pilots don't sell. But we gave it a good shot, and who knows? It may yet have a life, but for now, at least, it's on the shelf.
But it sounds like it's pretty relevant to what's happening in our area these days. So let's hope.
Very much so.
Yeah.
We had, our whole concept was that we were going to, if we were able to pull it off and get the show picked up, we were going to film it here, in the Cortez area. That would bring, all sorts of economic benefit to the area.
Mm-hmm.
We'd set up a teaching component for young, would-be filmmakers and writers, especially native filmmakers and writers. Right. And we had high hopes for it in all those regards. And they may yet come to fruition, but we'll see.
We'll see. Let's hope so.
It's been great visiting with you again, Tracy.
And you.
I always enjoy your show, and I'm honored to have been your guest.
Well, I appreciate you writing, and I look forward to the next endeavor.
Well, thank you. And I'll just close by reminding readers that the Chimera Club is available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook, wherever books are sold.
That was Chuck Greaves talking to us from his home in St. Elmo Canyon near Mancos, Colorado, about his new book, The Chimera Club, a Jack MacTaggart mystery. This is Tracy Hales with Right on Four Corners on KSJE, the information and cultural beacon of the Four Corners in Farmington, New Mexico.
Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.